Hi friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robbie. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple. It is time for another monthly wrap-up in TBR, and this was a bit of a slower month for
but
us.
It was better than last month for me, at least how many books I read.
Is it really?
I think so, because I only read one book last month.
That's true.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Hey, we've had a lot of stuff going on.
You read like 47.
Okay.
We had a lot going on, yes. And
we had a lot
worked
going
too many
on.
jobs,
So, you know, we're sorry, but we are getting out as many as we can.
A wee bit behind, but that's okay.
It doesn't really matter. We just want to be having fun reading these
No, and
books.
talking about books.
Talking about books. So the first video that we put out this month, which feels like a really long time ago.
It really does.
But,
Can't believe it's the end of April.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Was The Tower of Dawn, which is the penultimate installment in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. The Kale book on a different continent. And, you know, if you want to hear more details on our thoughts, of course, for any of the ones that we made videos about, you can find the links in the description down below or above my head. But this one was a bit slower for me, and I think probably most people who have read it. I had some, I don't know, pretty significant issues with it, but I still enjoyed it on the whole. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I mean, it was a ballsy choice to split your narrative so close to the end of the series. It always is anytime you're going to split your narrative like that away from the main plot line. And I think there were varied levels of success. I really respect certain things that happen, such as like the large amount of world building she did. That's probably never going to be relevant again. But overall, my biggest problem with the book was it felt like a lot of it was filler. There felt like there was a lot of extra fluff there that really just didn't need to be. And I strongly feel that it could have been a novella. Or they could have combined the last book and this one. I really think with some creative editing that really could have happened.
Oh, the book before this, not the last
the book before this. I really think that it could have been one pretty big, really fast-paced book, and we would have gotten the same amount out of it as readers. But that's right. Those are just my thoughts.
Yep. And then I read Lord of Chaos. Yeah. The 6th book in the Wheel of Time series.
We're really making a dent.
I read 6. I've read at least 100,000 pages in this series. Because each book is like 10 million pages. Each book is about 900 pages long. And I don't mind a 900-page long book, but these you really feel those 900
Yeah, they're
pages.
doorstoppers.
And I think that's probably the doorstoppers, literally. I think that is probably the one critique I had of this. I had a hard time getting into it, but overall I really, really loved it. I have come to love the characters so much, and we got a lot of time with the characters. Coming around to Rand, you guys. She's a Rand fan. Who would have thought?
What's happening?
He's not my favorite character, but I'm a fan. So I'm excited to get into the next one. I've already started it, so.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll have that for you. No, not that. I think we're going to start trying to do our Wheel of Time videos every other month to give you some time to also read other things you want to read.
I really haven't read anything
They're dense books, and it takes a long time to read.
Yeah.
So it's hard to read anything else when you're focusing on those. So I think we're going to try and start moving our Wheel of Time videos to every other month just to give you bit of a heads up to try and keep our timelines a bit more realistic. So hopefully we don't have another month where there's only 2 videos I think that we put out this month, which
I happen to not. Yeah, I'm not the fastest reader in the land, and they're big books, and I wanna know what's happening. So we'll spread them out a little bit more from here.
Yeah,
I do also listen to them mostly, and I love listening to them. I very much enjoy it.
That's great. Yeah. I'm not a big audiobook person.
I wasn't until I started reading Wheel of Time, and now I am a big audiobook. But though I will say I've only really listened to Wheel of Time on audiobook. And a few of the Percy Jacksons at this point. But anywho, loved that one. Yeah. Excited to get into 7. So officially, after this next one, I'll be halfway through the series.
Yes.
He says, but there's a prequel.
There is a prequel. No, there's a prequel. There's just
one prequel.
There's one prequel.
Okay, well, close enough. I still feel like I'm halfway.
Yeah, you are.
That's pretty triumphant.
Yeah, that's very triumphant. Yeah. Very triumphant. Yeah. Joyful and triumphant. So those are the only 2 videos that we had this month, but did you read anything on your own?
Yes. I finally finished The Viscount Who Loved Me, which is book 2 in the Bridgerton series. I'm very compelled to read at least up to 4 before the series comes out, because 4 is Penny's book, and I love me some Penn, and obviously I want to watch it before the season comes out, and that's all I can think about is this Bridgerton season 3. So, finished book 2. It took me a long time to get into. People really love this series, and I have not found love for it yet. Mind you, I've only read the first 2, but I remember having a similar struggle with the first one. I'm not much of a rereader a lot of the times, and I think that is partially because if I know what's happening, I get a little bit bored and I want to get there. The only books that I've really enjoyed rereading are ACOTAR, because I love them so much. Mind you, I have now realized that I forget a lot of stuff. So rereading books that I really,
Which is
really love,
great, honestly, as a reader or as a consumer of any
you
type
kind of get
media.
to go in again and be like, oh my god, and you see new
this.
things. You're like, oh well, duh, because I remember this happened and that makes that happen. Anywho, that being said, I have watched season 1 and season 2 of Bridgerton, and I think because I know obviously they are different, but because I know the overall ending, I kind of struggled with it. I think it was fun. I'm very intrigued to get through the rest of the series. I've been told Francesca's book is going to be my favorite by a lot of people.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Which number book is that?
I think Francesca, well, because they're in alphabetical order. So we've got three boys.
So 6? Oh no, it doesn't go just A, B, C, D. Okay,
No. Well, it also it doesn't go because Daphne's book is first, even though she's not the oldest, because Anthony is the oldest. But then we've got all of the kids. There's a trillion of them.
Okay, great. Well,
doesn't matter.
Whatever.
I obviously haven't read them yet, so
who knows?
We're gonna see.
We'll get there eventually.
Or no, was it Francesca? I don't remember. Anyways, so I've been told by multiple people that there's one particular of the Bridgerton siblings that they're like, you are going to, me specifically apparently, is gonna love one. So we'll see.
Okay.
Go. What did you read?
I read a lot this month. This is probably the best reading month I had this year.
Wow. How many?
7 or 8.
Or 8?
I have a list. Hold on.
There you go. Wow.
So I read 7 books on my own this month. And full disclosure, I actually did also read The Lost Hero this month, which we didn't get a chance to record the video for, but that'll be coming next week. So keep an eye out for that. So actually 8, but we're going to count that as a May one. But okay, yeah, so I read 7 books. And also, just the books that I read were, for the most part, really great. It was just a really, really good reading month. I read a ton. And especially in the first half of the month, I've kind of slowed down as we've gotten towards the end. So after I finished Tower of Dawn, I read Disquiet Gods, which is the 6th and also penultimate book in the Sun Eater series by Christopher Ruocchio.
So your May is going to be pretty crazy.
No, because that book, the 7th book isn't out
yet,
never mind. So it's not going to come out until next year. Or I don't think there's been a release date, but I do believe 2025 is the released year, hopefully. Wow. I really enjoyed this book. I had to sit on it for a little while. I can't really say too much about it without there being a ton of spoilers, but like I said, it's the 6th book in the Sun Eater series and continues to follow the story of Hadrian Marlowe. There was a very large time skip in this one. So Hadrian is an older man, and he is kind of drawn back into the war with the Cielsen, and we follow him. There are some absolutely insane reveals in this book.
This one's crazy.
Yeah, this one's crazy. There are things that happen in this that I think may rub some people the wrong way. I think that there's a lot of great conversations to be had around all of it, and it's something that I'm going to need to sit on for a long time before I really decide exactly how much I enjoy it. But I did give it 5 out of 5 stars. I think that, Ruocchio is writing one of the most excellent sci-fi or sci-fantasy epics that I've ever read, and I think everything that happens in this book makes sense within the world and with the continuity of what has been written before it. It's not a perfect book by any means, but it's definitely one of my favorites in the series. So much happens. There's a very similar plot structure to Demon in White, where they're planet hopping and there's so many different plot elements that are coming together. There are also massive reveals about things and mysteries that we've been wondering about for books and books, and also just the world and larger universe and reality that Ruocchio has created, the nature of existence, and why we are here. In some ways, he tries to tackle some of those questions. But yeah, anyway, it was a crazy start to the month with a book that really made me think. And then after that, I jumped into I think one of the best books I may have ever read, which was Ship of Destiny, the final book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, which is one of the best trilogies I've ever read. Absolutely. It's, I started off really liking this series, but expecting to absolutely adore it, and ended absolutely adoring it. The characters, the story, the world, obviously this is a continuation of Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings larger series, and this is a self-contained kind of trilogy within it, and Again, third book in a series, can't get into too much without spoilers, but continues to follow largely the Vestrit family, which is a trader family, and their live ship, which is a magically awake ship, essentially. The figurehead is alive. There's piracy, there is dragons and serpents. There's a ton of political intrigue, and there's some really awful, awful things that happen in this book, and there's some truly disgusting characters, and a lot of the book is about dealing with grief and abuse and loss, and what to do with your life when it's not going the way that you thought it would. And I think a lot of these themes are handled really beautifully. I would really strongly encourage people who have read the Farseer trilogy or tried to get into Realm of the Elderlings, and Farseer trilogy wasn't for them, it was too slow or whatever it was, give Live Ship Traders a chance. It's very, very different, and I think it's just an unbelievably beautiful series, and really can't recommend it enough. So it was really an incredible just start off to the month with 2 5-star books, both of which are fantastic for different reasons.
Do you think I would like it?
Live Ship Traders? I do. Mm-hmm. I hope. Okay. Actually, I don't know. There's some really bad stuff that happens in this. I will say a trigger warning for sexual assault. A large theme in the Live Ship Traders, not a large theme, but there is a land country, essentially, where slavery is a thing, and the role of women in this society is very not good in that particular society, and so characters have to deal with.
This is also a female writer, correct?
Female writer.
Yeah. See, yes. I'm always like, there's something. It's different coming from a female perspective. Anytime I've read anything like that from a female perspective, and it would be interesting, like if I got something different out of it than you did, because often there are many things that are kind of put in there for us. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Curious about it.
Yeah. After that, I read the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, Carl's Doomsday Scenario. This is the second book in the Lit RPG series where we follow Carl, just a regular dude, and his cat, Princess Donut, who has gained the ability to speak, on an 18, maybe 20, level dungeon crawl after the world has been taken over and it's broadcast live as a reality show, and it's gross and funny and irreverent.
And you laugh out loud.
And I laugh aloud quite often, and it's wonderful. It's a lot of guffaws. It's great. I didn't like this book quite as much as the first. The setup is different, which I also think is probably going to be one of the strengths of the series as I continue to read it, because each book is about one level of the dungeon, at least I assume. So far it has been, essentially. And each level of the dungeon has an entirely different theme. So in this book, the dungeon is like kind of much more normal, like overworld, kind of classic video gamey type thing where there's quests and stuff, and the main plot follows a few quests in the area that they are in. Didn't work as well for me exactly as the first one, but it was still great to read. I still read the entire book in one day. These are like the perfect fun fantasy things to break up any larger and heavier series, which is what I had just read 2 of back to back before this, so it was really the perfect time to read it for me. If you like progression fantasy, if you like video games, if you have not tried a lit RPG yet and are like, I want to kind of see if that's something that I'm interested in, I can't recommend this enough. It is so far still the only lit RPG series that I have read, but I am loving it so far, and I can't wait to get into the next one, which I did actually read this month, so I'll get back to that in just a minute. But after that, I have been kind of mentioning that I would like to reread the original Mistborn trilogy before I jump into Era 2, and I've kind of decided I think I'm just going to try and pick up one Mistborn book a month until I've read all of them that have been published so far. So that's what I started this past month. I reread Mistborn for the first time in probably over a decade, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Who wrote Mistborn?
Brandon Sanderson.
That's Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah,
okay.
Brandon Sanderson.
I had it in my head filed under Brandon Sanderson.
It's been a very long time since I've read this. It was one of my first forays back into fantasy, and probably my first forays into adult fantasy in general, back when I was getting back into reading in my 20s. And, I really like this book still. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it. One of the biggest things that kind of held back from me was I didn't love Vin for a good part of the book. I just didn't really connect with her as much. I loved Kelsier, or however you say his name. He's great. And I think Sanderson, the things that Sanderson shines at, you can see here, like in this, one of the first books he published, the first one that really exploded. He's great at writing groups of characters, like a crew of just like vibrant characters that you love and want to hang out with. He's great at writing very inventive magic systems. The way that metals are used here and the different things that they can do are fascinating and well explained and easy to understand. And I think that that's really one of the biggest strengths of the book, is how accessible it is. A lot of people say things about Brandon Sanderson's prose and how he's like, there's discussions about, well, is he a great writer or not? Or like, is his prose too simple? I think Brandon Sanderson's prose does exactly what he wants it to do, which is to tell a very crisp and clear story that keeps moving. And that doesn't mean that some of his books aren't overly long, because some of them are super, super long and probably could have been a little bit shorter. I'm looking at you, Stormlight number 4. But, I think it serves its purpose, and you can't argue with the results. I mean, people love Brandon Sanderson's books, and not every book needs to have purple, flowery, beautiful prose. I think there's a place for each different type of writing, and I think Mistborn is where I would send anyone who is new to adult fantasy, who is looking to make the jump from, like, I read fantasy when I was a kid, and there were, like, YA books and stuff that I really liked, but I would like to see what's out there with adult fantasy. I think Mistborn is the perfect thing for that, because it's like a really good bridge. It's a fast-paced story, there's a fun mystery, there's heists, there's a lot of really cool action, great cast of characters, incredible world, fascinating magic system, and you don't have to pick up a thesaurus every single time you read a passage. And there are some, good emotional moments as well. So I really think that it bridges that gap very well. It's like adult fantasy light. It's very close to... I think it's as close to YA as you're going to get while being adult fantasy, and I think that's what a lot of new adult fantasy readers are kind of looking for. They're not looking for like super dense stuff. They associate fantasy from their childhood as being like fun, fast-paced and stuff, so I think this would be a good way to intro someone to that. Then I read, so once I finished Mistborn, I then read The Grace of Kings, which is the new series I'm going to be reading through, I guess... I don't know, I'm reading through a bunch of series. But anyway, Grace of Kings, which is the first book in the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu.
Yeah. You talked about
this book is fascinating. This is one of the most ballsy first books in the series I've ever read, because I'm just going to start with this, and I feel like it's going to have a negative connotation, but I don't mean it in a bad way, I mean it in the best way possible. It sometimes reads a lot like a history textbook. It's as if the author was like, okay, I'm going to write you a world-building Bible on my book,
That's kind of
on my series, before I tell the story I want to tell. And it's fascinating. It moves really fast. It moves really fast. This is kind of Asian-inspired fantasy. Ken Liu coined the term silk punk to describe it. Follows two major characters on the islands of Dara, which is Mata Zindu, the chrysanthemum, and Kunigara, the dandelion. And they are, Mata Zindu is an 8-foot-tall Goliath of a man and chosen of one of the gods of war. And Kunigara is a very charismatic layabout gangster, essentially. They meet and become best friends, brothers, as it were, and then a lot of things happen. There's a ton of plot in this, but I think, it should really be said that I got very emotional towards the end of this because I had connected with these characters so much, which I think says a lot when the scope of the narration is so zoomed out. Every chapter, multiple things are happening, or we're going back and doing an entire backstory on one of the new characters that was just introduced in like a short story vignette style change. So talk about Robin Hobb, which is all about character development. This book is all about plot development and making sure we understand what's been going on for the past however many years before the main events of the next 3 books in this series, which tell the story of, I guess, the Dandelion Dynasty. I don't know, I haven't finished it yet, so we'll find out. But it's a fascinating start to a series. I've never read anything quite like it. It's as if The Lord of the Rings wasn't a trilogy but a quartet, and the Silmarillion is supposed to be the first book you read. And you can do that, but it's also way less dry than that, so I don't want people to be intimidated by it. I read the Silmarillion, and it took me a really long time to get through. I read The Grace of Kings in like less than a week, so it's really not... I'm interested to see how I feel about the next book, because there is a huge narrative shift, and I've actually already started it, and it really zooms in a lot more. There are still multi-POVs and everything like that, but it's not like this huge kind of looking down on the Earth and all these things that are happening on this particular set of islands. So I'm really excited to see where the rest of the series goes, and I'll be continuing to work through that this month. As I said, I already started the next one. I would recommend this series to people who have been into and reading adult fantasy for a while, and they're looking for something new that's kind of like a change and different style than what you've read before. I'm not sure I would necessarily recommend this to new readers, just because, as I said, there are times when it can be a bit dry. I really liked it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and the fact that, like I said, it does sometimes read like a history textbook, and I still gave it that many stars and was entertained by it, I think says a ton.
Yeah.
But like I said, I have started the next book, which is Wall of Storms, and I was planning to just read that book through. I think I'm like 10-20% done now. But then, I gotta be honest, I had a really shit day the other day, and was like, I can't keep reading something that's that's like really dense, so I just wanted something a little bit lighter. So I did jump into the next Dungeon Crawler Carl book before I had originally planned to. This is the Dungeon Anarchists cookbook. Is book 3 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, and I just finished it the day before we recorded this, which is just a few days ago. It took me a day or two to read. Again, I really love this series. It's so fun. It's quickly becoming something I have to stop myself from reading too quickly. And I'm still kind of trying to stop myself from being like, I still feel sad, and I can just keep reading the next book.
That's okay. That's what book is. That's what books is about.
So it's really fun.
That's what they're for.
Yeah, this book I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So kind of probably, you know, in between my likes of the first and the second. This one is set all on like trains. The entire level is like they're on trains or on train stations. And there is a mystery in this on like them trying to figure out how the level works. Great. And like how to get around and how to get to the next level. And a lot of it kind of just went over my head. But to the author's credit, there is a bit in the beginning of the book where he says, don't worry too much about like the color of the lines and the names of the stations and stuff. We're going to be talking about them a lot. You're not really supposed to be able to figure out what's going on. There'll be a map at the end to kind of help you. And so I didn't stress about it too much, which is good, because most of it went over my head. And the entertaining part was kind of like seeing the characters figure things out for themselves. Though I will say there were a few too many moments where like the character went, I think I understand what's happening. And then the chapter ended and they didn't really say until like later. And that happened enough times that I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I feel, yeah, great. But again, I really love these books so much, and they're such a perfect light read for when you're in a bad mood or when you just can't focus on that like a little bit more dense text that you're reading. So I'm really glad that I squeezed that last one in before the end of the month. But yeah, overall, I mean, a really strong reading month for me, with some really fantastic books, some of my favorites of all time probably now, and I just read so much. So yeah, April was a unexpectedly big month for me. I accomplished all the reading I meant to and more, which I don't always do, so that was really great.
You're powerful.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So I guess now we should talk about what we're going to be doing next month.
Yeah.
So this month, next week, we're going to be putting out The Lost Hero, which is the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series. So we just recorded that video as well, so that should be coming up next week. And then after that, I think we're going to do Kingdoms of Ash, which is the end of the Throne of Glass series, which I'm very excited to get to.
I'm so excited for you to read.
I actually haven't even started the book yet, so I got quite a bit of reading to do. After that, we don't know.
We don't know.
After that, I'm not sure.
There could be another Wheel of Time book.
Could be another Wheel of Time book if she finishes it. If not, then I'm not sure what we will put up. It may be me talking about something that I've read on my own. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where we get later in the month. But that's what we have planned for thus far for this month. Is there anything you're gonna try and read on your own?
Yeah, Bridgerton.
Bridgerton, more Bridgerton.
Bridgerton, and probably a saucy, quick hockey romance or two.
Hockey romance.
Love
that's
hockey
like
romance.
its own subgenre.
Yeah, it fully is. Thank you, TikTok.
Thank you,
I'm gonna have to have you read some of them.
Great.
The innuendos are gonna just delight you.
Okay. Do they have to do with like the sticks?
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they have to do with the spit.
Okay, yeah, got it. Great.
What about you?
let's see, what am I going to be reading this month? So, I, of course, am going to be continuing Dandelion Dynasty, so I would at least like to finish Wall of Storms before the end of the month. Maybe the next one, too, which is either Veiled Throne or Speaking Bones. I forget the order. I will definitely pick up the second book in the Mistborn series. I will, I'm sure, read another Dungeon Crawler Carl book. So, that's 4 to be getting on with to begin with. So, I'll definitely... Yeah, if there's nothing else, so, I mean... Even if I read a ton, at most I would just continue the Dandelion Dynasty series, and I guess it's possible I finish it this month, but unlikely, unless I really get on a big reading streak again, so who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
Yeah, that's really it for us this month, I think. You got anything else?
No.
No? Alright, well, thank you all so much for watching. If you want to watch any of the videos that we were talking about, or any of our other videos, you can always find the playlists down below. And thank you all so much for watching, and...
We'll see you on our next adventure.